Maya Chen was 8 years old, and most days she felt completely invisible. She sat in the back row of her third-grade music class, right next to the window where she could watch the leaves falling from the oak tree outside. While her classmates fumbled through hot cross buns on their plastic recorders, Maya tapped her fingers against the wooden desk, creating little rhythms that nobody else could hear. Her music teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was a kind woman with gray hair always tied in a neat bun. She loved music, really loved it, but she'd learned long ago not to expect too much from elementary school students. Most kids were there because they had to be, not because they wanted to learn about quarter notes and treble clefs. "Maya, are you paying attention?" Mrs. Patterson would ask sometimes, catching her staring out the window. Maya would nod quickly and sit up straighter, but the truth was, music class bored her to tears. Not because she didn't like music. Actually, it was the opposite. The simple songs they played felt like walking when she wanted to run. She could hear the melodies in her head, complete and full. But what came out of the recorders around her sounded thin and squeaky. After school, Maya would walk home through the busy streets of their neighborhood. She lived above her parents' restaurant, a small Chinese takeout place called Golden Dragon. The neon sign outside flickered sometimes, and her dad kept saying he'd fix it, but there was always something more important that needed money first. The restaurant was her parents' whole world. Her mother, Lynn, worked the front counter, taking orders with a tired smile that never quite reached her eyes anymore. Her father, David, stayed in the back kitchen, cooking from early morning until late at night. The smell of fried rice and sweet and sour chicken filled their apartment constantly. Maya had grown so used to it that she didn't even notice anymore. Their apartment was small. Maya's bedroom was barely big enough for her bed and a narrow bookshelf. Her parents slept in the living room on a pull-out couch, and the kitchen was so tiny that only one person could stand in it at a time. They didn't have much, but her parents worked hard to make sure Maya had what she needed for school. What they couldn't afford were extras. No dance lessons, no soccer team fees, definitely no music lessons. When other kids talked about their piano recitals or violin practice, Maya would just smile and stay quiet. She'd learned early on not to ask for things her parents couldn't give. But there was one thing in their apartment that Maya loved more than anything else. In the corner of the living room, covered with old newspapers and her dad's work jackets, sat an electronic keyboard. It had been left behind by her Uncle Chen 3 years ago when he moved to California. He'd said he'd come back for it, but he never did. The keyboard was old, maybe 15 years old, with yellowing keys and a cracked music stand. Some of the keys stuck when you pressed them, and the volume dial was scratchy. But to Maya, it was treasure. Her parents didn't know that she played it. At least she didn't think they knew. Every night after the restaurant closed and her parents finally collapsed onto their couch bed, Maya would wait. She'd wait until she heard her father's snoring, until the footsteps from the apartment above them stopped, until the street outside grew quiet. Then she'd slip out of bed, tiptoe across the creaky floorboards and uncover the keyboard. She'd plug in the headphones her uncle had left behind so she wouldn't wake anyone, and then she'd play. She taught herself everything. At first, she just pressed random keys, learning which sounds she liked and which ones she didn't. Then she started picking out simple melodies from songs she heard on the radio or in commercials. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star was easy. So was Happy Birthday. But Maya didn't want easy. She'd find videos online using the library computer during lunch period, watching Pianist's hands flying across the keys. She couldn't understand the music theory they talked about, didn't know what arpeggios or chord progressions meant, but she could watch their fingers and remember. Then she'd go home and try to copy what she'd seen. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. But slowly, night after night, she got better. She never told anyone about her secret practice sessions. Not her parents, not her teacher, not even her best friend Wei, who lived 2 floors down. It felt private, special, like something that belonged only to her in a life where nothing really did. At school, Maya was quiet. She got good grades without trying too hard, stayed out of trouble, and blended into the background. Teachers liked her because she never caused problems, but they also never really noticed her. She was just another student in an overcrowded classroom, another face in the yearbook photo. The other kids didn't bully her, but they didn't include her much either. At lunch, she sat with a rotating group of girls who were nice enough but never invited her to birthday parties or weekend hangouts. Maya told herself she didn't mind. She had her music even if nobody knew about it. Her parents loved her, she knew that. But they were so tired all the time. Her mother's hands were always red and rough from washing dishes. Her father's back hurt from standing over the hot stove for 12 hours a day. When they asked about her day, Maya knew they were trying their best, but she could see their minds were elsewhere, calculating bills and food costs and whether they'd have enough customers tomorrow. So Maya kept things simple. School was fine, she'd say. I got an A on my spelling test. She never mentioned that she'd spent lunch period watching piano videos, or that she'd figured out how to play a complicated melody she'd heard in a movie. Some nights, when she sat at the keyboard with her headphones on, Maya would close her eyes and imagine she was somewhere else. Not in a cramped apartment above a takeout restaurant, but in a big concert hall with velvet seats and crystal chandeliers. She'd imagine people coming to hear her play, really play, not just squeaky recorder songs, but real music that made people feel something. But then she'd open her eyes and see the cracked keys and the newspapers piled on the floor, and she'd remember that dreams like that weren't for girls like her. Dreams required money for lessons, money for a real piano, money her family simply didn't have. Still, Maya played. Every night she played, because even if no one would ever hear her, even if she'd never perform on a real stage, those stolen moments at the keyboard were hers. In those quiet hours past midnight, with the city sleeping around, her and her fingers moving across the keys, Maya felt like she could finally breathe. She had no idea that everything was about to change. She had no idea that in just a few weeks the whole world would know her name. She had no idea that her ordinary, invisible life was about to become extraordinary. But for now, she was just Maya. 8 years old, tapping rhythms on her desk, waiting for the school day to end so she could go home to her secret keyboard and play. The announcement came during morning attendance on a Tuesday. Principal Rodriguez walked into Maya's classroom with a bright smile and a colorful flyer in her hand. Good morning, students. I have exciting news. This Friday we'll have a special assembly. A real concert pianist is coming to perform for our school. The classroom erupted in whispers. Some kids groaned, thinking it would be boring. Others seemed curious. Maya felt something flutter in her chest but kept her face neutral, the way she always did. His name is Dr. James Wellington, Principal Rodriguez continued. He's performed all over the world, and he's taking time out of his busy schedule to visit schools and share his love of music with young people. We're very lucky to have him. The rest of the week crawled by. Maya found it hard to concentrate on math problems or spelling words. A real concert pianist. Someone who actually performed the kind of music she heard in those videos she watched. Someone who knew what it felt like to make a piano truly sing. She didn't tell anyone she was excited. What would be the point? Wei might think it was weird that Maya cared so much about a piano concert. Besides, Maya had learned that getting excited about things just made it hurt more when they didn't turn out special. Friday morning arrived with gray clouds and a light drizzle. The whole school filed into the auditorium after lunch, classes mixing together as teachers tried to maintain order. Maya ended up sitting in the middle section, surrounded by fourth graders she didn't know. The auditorium lights dimmed and Principal Rodriguez walked onto the stage to introduce Dr. Wellington. When he walked out, Maya sat up straighter. He was younger than she expected, maybe in his 40s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He wore a simple black suit and sat down at the grand piano on stage without any fanfare. Good afternoon, everyone, he said into the microphone. I'm not going to talk too much. I think music speaks better than words ever could. So let me play something for you. His hands touched the keys, and the auditorium transformed. The first piece was gentle and flowing, something Maya later learned was by Debussy. The notes seemed to float through the air like the rain outside. Some kids started whispering, but Maya barely breathed. She watched his hands, the way his fingers curved, the way his whole body moved with the music. Then he played something different, something that made the piano sound like thunder and lightning. His fingers flew across the keys so fast they blurred. The music was angry and passionate and incredibly difficult. Maya's heart pounded. She'd never heard anything like this in person, only through her cheap headphones late at night. When he finished, the auditorium exploded with applause. Even the kids who'd been whispering were clapping hard. Dr. Wellington stood and bowed, his face flushed with the effort of playing. "That last piece," he said, "was the Revolutionary Etude by Chopin. It's one of the most challenging pieces in the piano repertoire. Chopin wrote it when he was angry about his homeland being invaded. You could hear that anger in the music, couldn't you?" Several kids nodded. Maya just stared, replaying every note in her mind. "Now," Dr. Wellington said, "I always like to invite students to come up and try the piano. Don't worry. You don't have to play anything complicated. Just come up and press a few keys. Feel what it's like to touch a real concert grand piano." A few brave kids went up, mostly older students. They'd press a key or two, giggle nervously, and run back to their seats. Teachers encouraged more participation. Mrs. Patterson was looking around her section, probably thinking about asking some of her music students to volunteer. Maya's hand went up before she could think about it, before she could talk herself out of it, before the voice in her head could say, "What are you doing? You'll embarrass yourself." Mrs. Patterson looked surprised but nodded at her. Maya stood up, her legs shaking, and walked down the aisle. The auditorium suddenly felt huge. Hundreds of eyes on her. She almost turned back, but Dr. Wellington was smiling at her encouragingly. "Come on up," he said. "What's your name?" "Maya," she said quietly. "It's nice to meet you, Maya. Go ahead, try it out." Maya stood next to the piano bench, and suddenly the words came tumbling out before she could stop them. "Can I try that last song?" The auditorium went quiet. Then a few kids laughed. Dr. Wellington's smile became more careful, the kind adults use when they think a child has said something cute but unrealistic. "The Revolutionary Etude?" he asked gently. "That's a very difficult piece, Maya. It takes years of training to play. How about trying something simpler first?" "I can do it," Maya said, surprised by the confidence in her own voice. Dr. Wellington glanced at Mrs. Patterson, who looked just as confused as everyone else. He clearly didn't want to embarrass Maya, but he also didn't want to say no and crush a child's enthusiasm. "All right," he said carefully. "Give it a try." Maya sat on the piano bench. Her feet barely touched the floor, certainly not the pedals. The piano was bigger than her uncle's keyboard, the keys wider and heavier. For a second, panic seized her. What if she couldn't do it? What if she'd made a terrible mistake? Then she closed her eyes. She could hear the music in her head. Every note Dr. Wellington had played just minutes ago. She'd always been able to do this, remember things she heard, but she'd never questioned whether other people could do it too. She just thought everyone's brain worked this way. 3 seconds passed. 3 seconds of perfect silence while Maya listened to the music playing in her memory, her fingers twitching slightly as she mapped out the keys in her mind. Then she opened her eyes and began to play. The first notes rang out, clear and strong. Her small fingers stretched to reach the octaves, her hands moving faster than seemed possible for an 8-year-old. The angry, passionate music poured out of the piano, filling the auditorium with sound. Maya wasn't thinking anymore. She was just playing, letting her hands remember what her ears had heard. The difficult runs, the dramatic chords, the lightning-fast passages that made Dr. Wellington's hands blur. It all came flowing out of her. The auditorium was dead silent except for the music. No whispers. No fidgeting. Even the teachers stood frozen, their mouths hanging open. Dr. Wellington had taken several steps back, his hand over his mouth, his eyes wide with shock. His face had gone pale. Maya played through the entire piece, hitting every major section, her concentration absolute. Her small hands worked furiously, sweat beginning to bead on her forehead. When she reached the final dramatic chords, she played them with all the strength her little arms could manage. The last note hung in the air. Maya's hands hovered over the keys, shaking from effort and adrenaline. Then she looked up at Dr. Wellington with innocent eyes and asked, "Did I do it right?" The auditorium exploded. Kids were screaming, jumping out of their seats. Teachers rushed toward the stage. Several people were crying, including Mrs. Patterson, who had both hands pressed to her face. Dr. Wellington dropped to his knees beside the piano bench, his eyes level with Maya's. "How did you do that?" he whispered. "How is that possible?" Maya didn't understand why everyone was reacting this way. I listened to you play it, and then I played it." "You've never had lessons?" "No," Never played this piece before today? No, I just heard it right now. Dr. Wellington looked like he might faint. Principal Rodriguez was on stage now, along with several other teachers, all talking at once. Someone had their phone out recording. Someone else was taking pictures. But Maya just sat there on the piano bench, confused by all the fuss. She'd played the song. That's what he'd asked her to do, wasn't it? She didn't understand why Dr. Wellington was looking at her like she'd just performed a miracle. In the audience, Wei was standing on her seat, waving her arms and shouting, "That's my friend. That's my friend Maya." Kids Maya had never spoken to were trying to push their way down the aisles to get closer to the stage. Teachers were attempting to restore order but failing miserably. Dr. Wellington finally stood up, his legs unsteady.
He held up his hands for silence, and gradually,
the chaos settled into excited murmuring. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, his voice shaking slightly, "I have performed in front of royalty. I have played in the greatest concert halls in the world, but I have never in my entire career witnessed anything like what I just saw. This young girl has a gift that appears perhaps once in a generation, perhaps once in a lifetime." More applause, more screaming. Maya felt her face getting hot. She wanted to go back to her seat, back to being invisible, but there were too many people around her now. Mrs. Patterson was crying openly now, saying, "She sits in my class. She's in my music class. How did I not know? How did I not see?" Principal Rodriguez was trying to usher people back, giving Maya space to breathe. Dr. Wellington knelt down again and spoke to her quietly, away from the microphone. "Maya, I need to talk to your parents." "Is that all right?" Maya nodded, still not fully understanding what was happening. What she didn't know was that her life had just changed forever. The phone videos being recorded were already being shared, sent from parent to parent, teacher to teacher. Within hours, they'd be online. Within a day, they'd be everywhere. But right now, in this moment, Maya was just a confused 8-year-old girl who'd played a song and couldn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal about it. She just wanted to try the piano. Maya's mother got the first phone call at 4:30 that afternoon. She was taking an order from a regular customer when her phone rang, showing Principal Rodriguez's number. "Mrs. Chen, I need you to come to the school right away," the principal said, her voice strange and excited. "Maya's fine, she's perfectly fine, but something incredible has happened." Lin Chen felt her heart drop into her stomach. When schools called and said everything was fine, it usually meant it wasn't. She told her husband to watch the counter and rushed the 6 blocks to the school, her mind racing through every possible disaster. What she found was chaos. The main office was packed with teachers, all talking excitedly. Principal Rodriguez saw her and immediately pulled her into her office, where Dr. Wellington was sitting with Maya. Maya looked small and tired in the big chair, relieved when she saw her mother. "Mama," she said quietly. "What happened? Are you okay?" Lynn asked, rushing to her daughter's side. "Mrs. Chen, please sit down," Principal Rodriguez said. "Your daughter is fine. Better than fine. She's extraordinary." Over the next 20 minutes, they explained what had happened at the assembly. Lynn listened, her expression moving from confusion to disbelief to shock. She kept looking at Maya, trying to match this story with her quiet, ordinary daughter. "This is not possible," Lynn said finally in her accented English. "Maya never has piano lessons. We have no money for this." "That's what makes it so remarkable," Dr. Wellington said, leaning forward. "Mrs. Chen, your daughter has what we call perfect pitch and photographic musical memory. She can hear music once and reproduce it perfectly. This is exceptionally rare. I've been teaching piano for 25 years, and I've never encountered anything like this." "I don't understand," Lynn said, still trying to process. Dr. Wellington pulled out his phone and showed her a video. Someone had recorded Maya's performance from the audience. Lynn watched her daughter's small hands flying across the piano keys, playing music that sounded impossibly complex. Tears began streaming down her face. "My daughter did this?" she whispered. "Yes," Dr. Wellington said gently. "And Mrs. Chen, I need you to know something. This video is already online. Parents were recording. Teachers were recording. It's being shared very quickly. By tomorrow morning, this might be everywhere." Lynn looked up sharply. "Everywhere?" "The internet moves fast when something is this special. Your daughter is about to become very well known." Lynn didn't fully understand what he meant until she got home with Maya that evening. Her husband David was standing behind the counter staring at his phone with his mouth open. "Lynn," he said in Mandarin, his voice shaking. "Lynn, come look at this." The video of Maya was already on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The view counts were climbing by thousands every minute. The restaurant's phone was ringing constantly. Their personal phones were buzzing with messages from relatives, old friends, people they hadn't heard from in years. By 9 o'clock that evening, a local news crew was at their door asking for an interview. Lynn told them to go away, holding Maya close. But through the window, she could see neighbors gathering outside, trying to catch a glimpse of the girl they'd walked past 1,000 times without really seeing. Maya sat on the couch, eating leftover fried rice, watching her parents panic in 2 languages. She still didn't understand what was happening or why everyone was so upset. She just played a song. That night, Maya couldn't sleep, not because she was excited, but because the phone kept ringing and people kept knocking on the door. Her parents had stopped answering both, but the noise continued. Through her bedroom wall, she could hear her parents arguing in hushed, worried tones. "What if someone tries to take advantage of her?" her mother said. "What if we make the wrong decision?" her father replied. "Maybe this is our chance for a better life," her mother said. "Or maybe it ruins everything," her father countered. Maya pulled her blanket over her head and tried to block out the sounds. The next morning was worse. News vans were parked outside. A reporter actually followed Maya and her parents on their walk to school, shouting questions. Principal Rodriguez had to call the police to clear the crowd gathering at the school entrance. Inside, everything had changed. Kids mobbed Maya in the hallways, wanting to touch her, to be near her. Teachers she'd never spoken to stopped her to say congratulations. The older kids, who'd never noticed her before, now stared and whispered as she walked by. Wei squeezed through the crowd to hug her.
"Maya, you're famous."
"Everyone's talking about you. My mom said you were on the morning news." Maya wanted to disappear. This was the opposite of being invisible, and it felt terrible. During class, she couldn't concentrate because other teachers kept coming to the door, wanting to see the piano prodigy. At lunch, so many kids crowded around her table that she couldn't eat. Mrs. Patterson found her hiding in the music room during recess, sitting in the corner with her knees pulled up to her chest. "Maya," the teacher said softly, sitting down beside her, "I'm so sorry. I should have noticed. You were always tapping rhythms, always listening so carefully. How did I miss it?" "I didn't want anyone to notice," Maya said quietly. "I liked it being secret." Mrs. Patterson's face crumpled with understanding. "Oh, sweetheart." By the end of the school day, Maya's parents had received over 300 phone calls and emails. Talent agents, music teachers, record labels, television producers, and book publishers all wanted a piece of Maya Chen. A man claiming to be from a prestigious music conservatory offered a full scholarship worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. A company wanted to send Maya on a concert tour. Someone wanted to make a documentary about her life. Dr. Wellington came to their apartment that evening, after they'd closed the restaurant early because too many people were coming in just to stare, rather than to order food. He sat at their small kitchen table, looking exhausted. "I need to apologize," he said. "I didn't think about what would happen when I invited Maya to play. I've started something I didn't anticipate, and your lives have been turned upside down." David Chen crossed his arms. "What do we do now?" "That's up to you," Dr. Wellington said. "But I want to offer my help free of charge. No strings attached. I can mentor Maya, teach her properly, help her develop her gift. Not because I want fame or recognition, but because talents like hers come along once in a lifetime and they deserve to be nurtured." "We cannot pay you," Lynn said bluntly. "I don't want payment. I want to help Maya become the musician she's capable of being. But only if that's what you want, and more importantly, only if that's what Maya wants." They all looked at Maya, who was sitting on the couch in her school uniform, looking smaller than her 8 years. "Maya," her mother said gently in Mandarin, then switching to English. "What do you want?" Maya thought about the keyboard in the corner covered in newspapers. She thought about her midnight practice sessions, the joy of making music when no one was watching. She thought about today at school, everyone staring and pointing and treating her like a zoo animal. "I want to play piano," she said quietly, "but I want it to be like before. Just me and the music. Not all these people." Dr. Wellington nodded slowly. "I understand. But Maya, I have to be honest with you. It won't be like before again. Not exactly. Once something goes viral like this, you can't put it back in the bottle. But we can control how we move forward. We can protect you while still developing your gift. Over the next several hours, they talked about possibilities. Dr. Wellington explained what proper training would look like. 2 or 3 sessions a week to start, learning music theory, proper technique, expanding her repertoire. He'd come to their apartment, keeping things private. What about all these other people calling? David asked. The agents, the record companies? My advice? Say no to everything right now, Dr. Wellington said firmly. Maya is 8 years old. There's no rush. Let her learn, let her grow, let her be a child. If opportunities come later, when she's older and ready, that's different. But right now, she needs protection from the circus this has become. Lin Chen looked at her husband, and some silent communication passed between them. They both turned to Maya. Is this what you want? Lin asked her daughter. To learn with Dr. Wellington? Maya nodded. I want to get better. I want to understand the music, not just copy it. Then we do this, David said, though his voice was heavy with worry. But carefully. Very carefully. Dr. Wellington smiled with relief. Carefully, he agreed. What none of them realized was just how difficult careful would be. The view count on Maya's video had passed 5 million. It had been shared by famous musicians, by celebrities, by news outlets in a dozen countries. Genius Pianist. 8-year-old girl solves a difficult piece in 3 seconds was trending worldwide. Talent scouts were booking flights to their city. Paparazzi were researching the family. Magazine editors were assigning stories. The machine of fame had started turning, and it didn't care about an 8-year-old girl who just wanted to play piano in peace. That night, Maya stood at the window of her bedroom, looking down at the street. Even at midnight, there were people down there. Someone with a camera. Someone waiting. Watching. She pulled the curtain closed and went to her keyboard, putting on her headphones. But for the first time ever, when she tried to play, her fingers felt stiff and uncertain. The joy she usually felt was buried under layers of anxiety and confusion. Maya took off the headphones and went back to bed. She pulled the covers up and stared at the ceiling, listening to her parents talking worriedly in the next room. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, wishing someone would notice her gift. Now everyone was looking, and all she wanted was to disappear again. Be careful what you wish for, she thought. Though at 8 years old, she didn't quite have those words yet. She just knew that something precious had been lost the moment she sat down at that piano in front of everyone, and she wasn't sure she'd ever get it back. 3 months had passed since the assembly, and Maya's life had become something she no longer recognized. She sat at her uncle's old keyboard, now moved into the corner of her bedroom with Dr. Wellington beside her on a folding chair. Sheet music covered her bed, notation books stacked on her dresser. This was her life now, scheduled and structured and completely different. Let's work on scales again, Dr. Wellington said gently. I know they're not as exciting as the pieces you want to learn, but they're the foundation of everything. Maya's fingers moved through C major, then G major, then D major. She played them correctly, but mechanically without the joy that used to fill her midnight practice sessions. Dr. Wellington noticed, but he didn't comment. He'd learned that pushing Maya when she got into these moods only made things worse. Outside her bedroom door, Maya could hear the restaurant below. Business had actually gotten worse since she became famous. Oh, plenty of people came by, but they were curiosity, see? Curs with cameras, not hungry customers. They'd order one small thing and spend an hour taking pictures hoping to spot Maya. The regular customers, the ones who'd supported the restaurant for years, stopped coming. Too crowded, too much fuss. Her parents had tried to hire extra help to manage both the restaurant and Maya's new schedule, but they couldn't afford it. The scholarship offers had been tempting, the money promises even more so, but David and Lin Chen had stood firm. Their daughter wasn't going to be paraded around like a performing monkey. Not yet, anyway. Maybe not ever. School had become a nightmare Maya endured 5 days a week. The initial excitement from her classmates had curdled into something else. Kids who'd been friendly at first started making comments. Think you're so special, a girl named Riley said one day in the bathroom. My sister takes real piano lessons. She says what you do isn't even that impressive. Yeah, her friend added. Anyone can copy something they just heard. It's not like you actually know how to play. Maya had stood there at the sink, hands frozen under the running water, trying not to cry. Mrs. Patterson found her there 10 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. The teacher who'd once overlooked her had become almost overprotective, but it was too late and too much. Maya didn't want special attention. She didn't want to be watched constantly to make sure she was okay. She just wanted everything to go back to normal. But normal was gone. It had vanished the second her fingers touched that piano in the auditorium. Wei was still her friend, loyal and enthusiastic, but even that friendship had changed. Wei seemed to think Maya's fame made her exciting by association. She'd bring other kids over at lunch saying, "This is my best friend Maya, the one from the video." Maya would smile tiredly while the kids asked the same questions they'd been asked 100 times before. The worst part was the pressure. Dr. Wellington was kind and patient, but even he had expectations now. He'd mentioned carefully that there was a small recital coming up for his advanced students. Just close friends and family. Maybe Maya could perform one piece. Nothing too demanding. Maya had agreed because she didn't know how to say no. So now, in addition to scales and theory and technique exercises, she was learning a piece by Mozart for the recital. It was beautiful and complex, and she hated every second of practicing it. The joy was gone. That's what nobody understood. Music used to be her escape, her secret garden where she could be herself. Now it was an obligation, a performance, something people expected from her. When she sat at the keyboard, she didn't hear the music anymore. She heard criticism, expectations, pressure. Maya, Dr. Wellington's voice pulled her back to the present. "You've played that same scale 3 times. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Maya lied. "Just tired." He looked at her with concern. "Maybe we should take a break today. You've been working very hard." "No, I'm okay. Let's keep going." She wasn't okay, but admitting it felt like failure. All these people believed she was special, gifted, extraordinary. If she told them she was drowning, what would that make her? Ungrateful, weak? The recital was scheduled for a Saturday evening, 3 weeks away. Dr. Wellington had rented a small community center space, sent invitations to about 50 people, and assured Maya it would be intimate and low pressure. But somehow word had gotten out. The local news wanted to cover it. A classical music blogger had heard about it and requested permission to attend. One of Dr. Wellington's former students, now a minor celebrity pianist, said she'd be in town and would love to come support Maya. Dr. Wellington tried to keep it small, tried to protect his young student, but the interest was overwhelming. By the week of the recital, over 200 people had expressed interest in attending a venue that held 60. Maya's mother had bought her a new dress for the occasion, spending money they really didn't have. It was dark blue with a white collar, and Maya felt like she was wearing a costume. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. The morning of the recital, Maya woke up feeling sick. Not pretend sick, truly sick. Her stomach hurt, her head pounded, and her hands were shaking. "Mama," she said, going into her parents' room. "I don't feel good." Lynn felt her forehead, checked her temperature, looked into her eyes. "No fever," she said. "Are you nervous, baby?" Maya nodded, tears starting to fall. "I don't want to do it. I don't want to play in front of people." Her mother held her close, and for a moment Maya felt safe. But then Lynn said, "You will be okay. Dr. Wellington will be there. We will be there. It's only one song, and then it's done. Only one song. Only one performance. Only one more thing that had been taken from her and turned into something for other people to watch and judge." That evening, the Chen family arrived at the community center an hour early. The small parking lot was already filling up. News vans were parked on the street. A local photographer was setting up equipment. "This is intimate," David Chen said in Mandarin, his voice tight with stress. Dr. Wellington met them at the door, looking apologetic and frustrated. "I'm so sorry. I tried to keep it small. I really did. We've had to turn people away at the door." Maya felt her breath coming faster. The room was too small, too crowded, too bright. There were people everywhere, all looking at her, pointing, whispering. The piano on the small stage looked enormous and terrifying. Other students were performing first, which should have helped Maya relax, but instead it made everything worse. They were all older teenagers mostly, and they played beautifully. They'd had years of lessons, proper training, and they made it look easy. When they finished, people clapped politely. Nice, but not overwhelming. Then Dr. Wellington walked onto the stage to introduce Maya, and the energy in the room completely changed. People sat up straighter. Phones came out. The news cameras turned on their lights. "Our final performer tonight is someone very special," Dr. Wellington said. "Many of you have seen the video that went viral a few months ago. Tonight I'm proud to present Maya Chen, performing Mozart's Piano Sonata No. 16 in C major." The applause was already deafening, and Maya hadn't even walked onto the stage yet. Dr. Wellington gestured for her to come up. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else as she walked toward the piano. The stage lights were so bright, so much brighter than she'd expected. She couldn't see individual faces in the audience, just a blur of people and cameras and expectations. Maya sat on the piano bench, adjusted her position the way Dr. Wellington had taught her, and placed her hands on the keys. Her heart was beating so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. She was supposed to begin. The room was silent, waiting, but her fingers wouldn't move. Her mind had gone completely blank. She couldn't remember the first note, couldn't remember anything except the pounding of her heart and the heat of the lights and the pressure of all those eyes watching, waiting for the genius girl to do something genius. Seconds passed. 5, 10, 15. People started shifting in their seats. Someone coughed. Maya's hands began to shake visibly. Dr. Wellington stood up from his seat in the front row, concern on his face. Maya looked at him and then at her parents and then back at the keys. She tried to start, pressing down on what should have been the first chord, but it came out wrong, discordant. She tried again, wrong again. The music that had been so clear in her practice sessions had vanished completely. Her photographic memory, her perfect pitch, none of it was working. There was just noise and panic and the terrible, suffocating pressure of disappointing everyone. Maya stood up suddenly, the piano bench scraping loudly across the stage floor. The sound echoed in the silent room. She looked out at all those people, all those expectations, and something inside her broke. She ran. Off the stage, past Dr. Wellington's outstretched hand, past her parents who tried to catch her, out the side door of the community center and into the cold evening air. She kept running until she reached the small park across the street, where she collapsed on a bench, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. The new blue dress was already dirty from where she'd stumbled. Her fancy shoes pinched her feet. Everything hurt. She heard footsteps running after her, multiple people, but it was her father who reached her first. He sat down next to her and pulled her close without saying anything, just holding her while she cried. Her mother arrived moments later, breathless, and sat on Maya's other side. They sandwiched their daughter between them, a protective barrier against the world. "I can't do it," Maya sobbed. I can't. Everyone thinks I'm special, but I'm not. I'm just me. I just want to be normal again. I want my music back. It's not mine anymore. Everyone took it." Lin Chen's own tears fell silently. She'd known this was coming, had seen her daughter getting quieter and sadder, but she hadn't known how to stop it. "I ruined everything," Maya continued. "Dr. Wellington spent all this time teaching me, and all those people came to see me, and I couldn't even play one song. I'm not a genius. Everyone's going to know I'm fake." "You are not fake," David said firmly in Mandarin. "You are 8 years old. That's what you are. 8 years old, and people have asked you to carry the weight of the world." Dr. Wellington approached carefully, giving the family space. "Maya," he said softly, "that wasn't your fault. That was mine. I pushed too hard, too fast. I forgot you're a child, not a performing machine. Everyone's going to say I'm a failure," Maya said. "Then let them," her mother said suddenly, with a fierceness Maya had never heard before. "Let them say whatever they want. You are my daughter first, pianist second, maybe pianist 10th or 20th. I don't care about videos or fame or any of it. I care about you." David Chen stood up, his decision made. "We're going home now, and then we're going to talk about what Maya wants, not what everyone else wants from her." They walked back toward the community center to get their things. People were standing outside now, watching. Some looked concerned, others disappointed. A few were actually recording the family's distress on their phones. Dr. Wellington positioned himself between the Chen family and the cameras. "Please," he said loudly, "give them privacy. Give this child privacy." Inside the community center, the recital had clearly ended. Other students and their families were leaving, some glancing sympathetically at Maya, others whispering behind their hands. Maya kept her eyes on the floor, her father's hand gripping hers tightly. They collected their coats and walked to their car in silence. The drive home was quiet except for Maya's occasional sniffles. Her parents didn't try to comfort her with false promises or platitudes. They just let her be sad. When they got home, they didn't immediately go up to their apartment. Instead, David unlocked the restaurant, which had been closed for the evening, and they sat together in a booth, the streetlights outside casting shadows through the windows. "Maya," her father said finally, "do you want to quit piano?" The question hung in the air. Maya thought about it, really thought about it. Did she want to quit? Or did she just want to quit performing, quit the pressure, quit being watched and judged? "I don't want to quit music," she said quietly. "I just want it to be mine again. Like it was before when I played at night and nobody knew. That made me happy. This doesn't make me happy." Her parents looked at each other, another one of those silent conversations passing between them. "Then that's what we do," Lynn said firmly. "No more recitals. No more videos. No more showing you off like a prize. You learn music for you or you don't learn it at all." "But Dr. Wellington spent so much time," Maya started. "We'll understand," David finished. "And if he doesn't, then he's not the right teacher for you." They sat there together in the dark restaurant, the three of them, and slowly, Maya felt like she could breathe again. The pressure that had been building for 3 months started to ease just a little. The failure at the recital would be all over the internet by morning. People would have opinions, criticisms, theories about what happened to the genius girl, but sitting there in that booth held safely between her parents, Maya realized something important. She didn't need to be a genius for them. She just needed to be their daughter. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. 6 months had passed since the recital that Maya didn't finish. 6 months since everything changed again, but this time in the opposite direction. The videos of her running off stage had gone viral, just like her first performance had, but Maya didn't watch them. Her parents had made a rule: no reading comments, no checking social media, no letting the internet into their home. They'd put the computers away, limited phone use to necessary calls only, and created what they called a media-free zone. At first, reporters had tried to follow up, wanting to know what happened to the prodigy who failed, but the Chen family had stopped talking. No interviews, no statements, nothing. Eventually, like all internet fame, the attention faded. People moved on to the next viral sensation, the next child genius, the next shocking moment. And Maya? Maya went back to being mostly invisible, and she'd never been more grateful for anything in her life. School was better now. The kids who'd been jealous seemed relieved that Maya wasn't special anymore. The ones who'd been fascinated had found other interests. Wei was still her friend, but now they talked about normal things. Homework, favorite movies, the funny thing that happened at lunch. Music rarely came up, and when it did, it was casual, not weighted with expectation. Mrs. Patterson treated Maya like any other student in music class. Sometimes Maya caught her teacher watching her with a sad, knowing expression, but Mrs. Patterson never pushed, never asked about piano, never tried to recapture what had happened that day in the auditorium. Dr. Wellington had come to their apartment the week after the failed recital. Maya had hidden in her room while he talked with her parents, afraid he'd be angry or disappointed. But when they called her out, his face was only kind. "Maya," he'd said, kneeling down to her level, "I want to apologize. I got caught up in your talent and forgot about you. I pushed too hard because I was excited, and I put you in situations you weren't ready for. That was wrong of me. I'm sorry I couldn't play," Maya had whispered. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing at all. I want you to know that if you ever want to learn piano again, I'd be honored to teach you. But only when you're ready, only if you want to, and only for you. Not for audiences, not for videos, not for anyone else." Maya had nodded but hadn't committed to anything. Dr. Wellington had left his card on the kitchen table and hadn't contacted them again. He was giving her space, and Maya appreciated that more than she could express. For the first few months, Maya hadn't touched a piano at all. The keyboard sat in her room, covered with a sheet untouched. She'd walk past it every day and feel a complicated mixture of longing and anxiety. Music had hurt her, but she also missed it desperately. Then about 4 months after the recital, something shifted. Maya woke up one night with a melody in her head, something she'd never heard before. It wasn't from a movie or a video or anything external. It came from inside her. a little tune that felt like the sound of rain on the restaurant's roof. She tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the melody persisted, growing and developing in her mind. Finally, around 2 a.m, she got up, uncovered her keyboard, and put on her headphones. Her hands found the keys almost reluctantly, as if they were approaching an old friend they'd had a fight with. Maya played the melody that was stuck in her head slowly at first, then with more confidence. It was simple, not like the complex pieces she'd been learning with Dr. Wellington. Just a few notes repeating and changing. But it felt right. It felt like hers. She played for about 20 minutes that night, developing the melody, adding to it, changing it when something didn't sound quite right. When she finally took off the headphones and went back to bed, she felt lighter than she had in months. After that, Maya started playing again, but on her own terms. Late at night in secret, just like before, except now, instead of copying songs she'd heard, she made up her own music. Little melodies, simple songs, pieces that probably weren't very good by professional standards but meant everything to her. She wrote about her parents working in the restaurant, translating the sound of the wok into rhythm and the smell of steamed dumplings into harmony. She created a piece about walking home from school, the sounds of traffic and construction and kids playing basketball becoming notes on the page. Maya started writing things down too, teaching herself basic music notation from library books. Her compositions were messy and probably broke all kinds of rules, but they were honest. They were hers. Her parents noticed the change in her. Maya smiled more, seemed lighter. Sometimes they'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear very soft music coming from her room, and they'd look at each other and smile. Their daughter was finding her way back to something she loved, but this time at her own pace. Then came the spring talent show at school. It was a small thing, not a big deal, just a Friday evening event where kids could perform if they wanted to. Wei was doing a comedy routine with some other girls. Kids were singing popular songs, doing magic tricks, performing dance routines. It was casual and fun, not competitive. Maya hadn't planned to participate. She was helping Wei practice her comedy routine when Mr. Chen, the 5th grade teacher organizing the show, mentioned they had one empty slot if anyone else wanted to fill it. "You should do it," Wei said immediately, then caught herself. "Sorry, I mean only if you want to. No pressure."